Hey, good morning. Welcome to Westbridge Church. My name's Jeremiah. I'm one of the pastors here. Great to have you with us today. I want to say hello to those of you in our parent viewing room. Great option if you have small kids you prefer to keep with you during the service. And happy Viking Sunday. Great to have you here at 8 a.m. We are finishing a series today, but before I jump into that, I have to mention something. First, all of our life groups start next week, and so I'm super excited about that. We start a new series next week. This Discover Westbridge takes place on a Thursday night during our Thursday night service. So if you want to know, here's why we do things the way that we do things, that's a great thing to participate in, and that's coming up. But what I want to say is next week we're starting a series, and I'm really excited about the series we're starting next week. It's a series called Kingdom Come, and I will say this, and I said this to somebody earlier this week, and I don't want to overhype it, I don't want to oversell it, but I don't know if I've ever said this, at least I don't ever remember saying this before. If I was told, you get one more series, and then you have to hang it up, you're done being a pastor. That's it, you get one more, take your pick, and that's it, you're done. The series that we start next week would be the series I would pick. That's how excited I am about this next series, because I've been planning this and working on it for about 6 months. And if it was the last series that I ever got to speak, this would be the one that I would do. So, again, not to overhype it, but I feel that I already have. Don't mean to oversell it, but I probably already did. But come next week. I'm just telling you, I'm so excited about this series. I think it's a series that could be potentially the most life-changing, most transformative series that we've done in the history of our church, maybe for some of us in our own lives. And I think it's a series worth prioritizing. I think it's a series worth inviting someone to. And so I want to encourage you, if you found this last series helpful, I want to encourage you to invite somebody as we kick it off next week. Okay, enough about that. We're wrapping up this series on parenting, Picture Perfect. And the whole idea with Picture Perfect is we're all not so picture perfect, right? There is no picture perfect family. And so how do you, week one, we talked about how to discipline without losing influence. How do you have scream-free parenting, right? And then week two, 4 things every kid needs from loving adults and parents in their life. And then last week, we talked about parenting with the end result in mind. How can I sort of look to the result we want with our kids and reverse engineer that to whatever season we're in? And so today we're wrapping up this series, and we're going to talk about what parents need for themselves, the commitments that parents need to make in order to be effective at preparing their kids for adulthood. Now, some of you've already raised your kids, right? That doesn't mean that there aren't still things that you still need. Here's the reality. All you've done is launched them into adulthood, but you've never stopped being a parent, and you'll never stop being a parent. So if you think the goal is to get them 18 and get them on their own, man, are you in for a surprise. The truth is, statistics show that over the last 20 years, the average age that a kid leaves home is 27 years old. See, Mom, that's why I live in the basement, all right? I'm only 26. I got time. But if you think the job is to get them to 18 and then you're done, it's just never the case, is it? Ask any parent who's raised kids who now have adults and those kids have kids. You're continuing your role of influence in their life for the rest of your life. Now, here's why we're talking about this. These are things today that every parent needs in order to continue to raise kids into adulthood. So think about it like this. This is the best way I can describe it. One of the biggest fears that people have today is the fear of flying. It's one of the top fears, one of the top phobias. And it's understandable because as soon as you get on the plane, the flight attendant comes on and goes, let me tell you about all the worst case scenarios that could happen on every flight. Now, if you've flown a lot, you're kind of in this position, and if you don't have a fear of flying, you're just like, I know, get on with it. You go through this every time. But I understand why there's a fear. They come on and they go, okay, just in case of a water landing, and you're like, well, that's a generous term for we're crashing into the ocean, you know? A water landing, don't worry, your seat cushion will turn into what? A flotation device, not a jet ski. That would be more helpful. It turns into a flotation device. Don't worry, if your plane is dropping 600 miles an hour into this water landing, you can just use your cushion to float on. There's no way that I'm putting that cushion up to my chest and floating on it because I've already ruined that cushion, okay? I'm just telling you. I'm telling you this. And then they go, man, in case all of the air, all of the oxygen gets sucked out of the plane, just in case the cabin loses pressure and we lose all of the oxygen, don't worry. A little mask will fall out of the ceiling And what do they always say? If you've got young children, secure your mask before you secure your kids, right? Then choose your kid with the most potential and then secure their mask. But here's the question. Why does the flight attendant say, put your mask on first? That seems to go against common sense. It seems like, and as a parent, your first instinct would be like, no, I gotta take care of my kids. But here's why. They say focus on yourself, because if you're gasping for breath, if you're losing oxygen, your judgment becomes impaired, and you're not actually able to help anybody around you. Now, think about that from a parenting perspective. This is why. You gotta secure your own oxygen mask first, because you wanna parent from a position of health. Think about it like this. Before it can be in you, it's got to be in you before it can be in your family. Before you can lead your family, you first must lead yourself. Before you can lead your family, you first must lead yourself. If I don't take care of myself, then as much as I'd like to help my family, I can't. In fact, in Proverbs, King Solomon, there's this great verse from Proverbs chapter 4, and he writes this nearly 3,000 years ago. He says this, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Now, he's not talking about your heart that pumps blood through your body, right, physically. He's talking about the core of who you are, that from that life flows, and whatever is in you flows out into the rest of your life. Whatever is going into your heart, whatever you're taking in, it's flowing out, and it's affecting your life. He says, above all else, make sure you stay spiritually and emotionally and mentally healthy, because your heart will direct your life. And whatever is coming in, if you've got toxic things coming in, if you've got unhealthy things coming in, negative things coming in, that's gonna flow out into the rest of your life. In other words, don't be so caught up with the busyness and stress and demands of life that you let your guard down. You are responsible for you. Guard what goes into your heart. My priority needs to be working on me and focusing on me so that I can parent my kids from a place of health. And at the end of the day, I'm only gonna be able to pass on to them what I have in me myself. In other words, whatever is in my heart eventually makes its way downstream into my life, which means it will make its way into my parenting. And so we must make sure that we're making and keeping some commitments in order to guard our heart from things that would potentially hurt our family. And so today I just want to give us 5 commitments that I think all parents should make to themselves, so that your heart is in a position to parent and lead your family well. Now, you might actually think of some extras that you want to add to this list, and that's awesome. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list. Again, I would just encourage us not to leave any of these off of this list. So here's the first commitment that I think all parents should make, and I think it's helpful for us: less guilt. Less guilt. Can we just make a collective agreement as parents to just stop beating ourselves up a little bit? Every parent I know feels guilty about something. We all do, right? And there's times where you're like, man, I know I dropped the ball, and hopefully this series has given us some tools to work on some of those areas. But ultimately, you can't own every decision your kid makes. They have a free will of their own. Some parents regret that they were too hard on their kids. They yelled too much. They ran their house like a military, right? And they watched as that created a wall of fear between them and their children. And then you have other people who just regret how easy they were on their children. They feel guilty for never drawing lines or setting limits, and they've watched how that lack of discipline has played itself out in their child's behavior. Some parents regret giving too much to their kids. They're like, oh, my kids just live with a sense of entitlement now because we gave them everything they wanted. Other parents have guilt and remorse over feeling like they didn't provide, and they wish they could have given more to their kids. They feel guilty because if they had more resources to help their kids, they wouldn't be struggling as much in life. Some parents live with the guilt of not giving more time to their children. Others feel guilty for smothering their kids and never giving them space to grow. Some say, oh, I sheltered them way too much, while others feel like, oh, I gave them way too much freedom. Some parents feel guilty for not being more proactive about their kids' physical health, and others feel guilty for breastfeeding them till they're 5 years old and feeding them tree bark for breakfast. I mean, just on and on and on. I mean, you could go every direction with this. Every parent I know has regrets. I've never met the parent that's like, nailed it. Yeah, no, like, perfect. We second guess our decisions all the time. And sometimes there is a verse from Proverbs. We read this last week, and I alluded to the fact we're going to bring it up again. There is this verse from Proverbs that often gets misused and misinterpreted to beat up parents. And it makes parents feel lousy, and it makes them feel like they failed, and it makes just piles on the guilt. And this verse was never intended to be used that way. But it's a proverb, and it's found in Proverbs 22. Solomon writes this: direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Can I tell you something? This is a proverb, not a promise. This isn't even from God. People read this as if this is a promise from God, as if these are God's words, and it's God's promise to all people that if you will do this, this is the outcome. This isn't God speaking. This is Solomon writing about how life works. And so throughout the years, I've heard this taught as a promise from God, and then I've watched parents get disappointed in God when it seemed like he didn't deliver on his promise. This isn't a promise from God, it's a proverb. This is Solomon writing about life, the wisdom of life, and this is him saying, generally speaking, this is how life works. But when it comes to life, here's what you and I all know. There are some outliers. This is just generally speaking, but there are outliers to how life works. I've known parents who faithfully brought up their children, modeled for them how to trust and follow Jesus, and their kids still make decisions to walk away from faith or to alienate themselves from family. And the truth is, you do the best that you can do at each and every moment, but you can't ignore the fact your child also has free will. Your child can make his or her own decisions, and ultimately, our kids are responsible for their own choices. So we all need a little bit less guilt. In fact, in Proverbs, he also writes this. He says, a wise child accepts a parent's discipline. A mocker refuses to listen to correction. And the truth is, that's their decision. Our kids will live with whether or not they received our instruction and discipline or whether they disobeyed it. Jesus had a disciple who betrayed him. We're like, oh, well, Jesus, put them on the right path, and when they're older, they won't depart. Come on, Jesus, listen to the Proverbs. Right? King David had children reject him. One of his sons tried to kill him and steal his kingdom. A priest named Levi had 2 sons that the scriptures call scoundrels. You have a guy named Noah who the scriptures tell us is one of the most righteous men who ever lived. And after the flood, he got drunk, passed out naked in his tent, and one of his kids walked in on him. That's not great parenting. Nor is it great camping etiquette. I can tell you, over the last 22 years of being a parent, here's what I've learned. All you can do is your best. That's it. And then it's out of your hands. You do your best with every situation. You do your best with every conversation. You do your best with each moment. You pray for wisdom. You go, God, I'm doing the best that I can with whatever knowledge and whatever tools I have. And then you leave them in God's hands. And ultimately, our kids are going to do what they decide to do. So do your best. Pray for your kids. Put everything you have into it. Listen to God's Spirit and listen to God's wisdom. But don't spend your life feeling guilty. We all need to make a commitment as parents. I'm going to live with a little bit less guilt in my life when it comes to this parenting thing. Here's the second commitment I think parents should make. Ongoing humility. Ongoing humility. Not a one-time humility, ongoing humility. Since we're probably going to make a lot of mistakes along the way when it comes to parenting, one of the single most effective tools in your toolbox is ongoing humility. Can I ask you something? When was the last time that your kids heard you say these words? I'm sorry, I was wrong, please forgive me. Powerful words. I'm sorry, I was wrong, please forgive me. If you can't think about the last time that your kids ever heard you say that, that might be an issue with your own humility. My 11-year-old son and I like to play a game called Madden Football. And we'll play on the Xbox, play Madden. It's a game that he frequently destroys me in. And I'm still, after many, many games, trying to figure out how the buttons work and all that kind of stuff. But I will tell you this, and this is probably going to come as a shock to many of you, but I'm very competitive. It's shocking, I know. I'm going to give you a moment to recover. I'm a very competitive person, and so these Madden battles get heated. Like, we get so frustrated with each other, and he's competitive too. And so we're just in there, it's just fierce, and we're just, and we get so frustrated and mad at each other sometimes that we have to put the game down and walk away. You're like, you're the guy leading our church? You're so immature. Yeah, I'm just telling you. And there's times where I have to go back and go, dude, I am someone in my mid-40s, and I should have more self-control than that, and I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. But here's what I can tell you. Most people in general, And kids in particular, they're willing to forgive you when you fall short if you're willing to own it. How many times does somebody come to you, regardless of their relationship in your life, and they apologize to you genuinely? Man, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I mean, aren't you quick to forgive when someone owns it? You're just like, dude, okay. But here's the resistance, is when they don't want to own it, when they're never wrong. That's when you're like, come on, right? And the same thing is true when it comes to our kids. If what people have a difficult time forgiving is when you're unable to admit that you're wrong in the first place. In 1 Peter chapter 5, the Apostle Peter, who's one of Jesus' closest friends and followers, he's writing to this church family to provide instruction on how they're to interact with one another. And part of that instruction, here's what he writes. He says this: in the same way, you who are younger must accept the authority of the elders. And all of you dress yourselves with humility as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And the same thing is true of us. If somebody comes at us with pride, we're quick to oppose that. But if somebody comes to us with humility, we're quick to give grace. Peter's quick to remind younger generations to accept the authority of the older generation. However, he says, he's careful to point out everything must be done with humility. God opposes the proud, he gives grace to the humble. And real life serves to confirm that verse, doesn't it? Now, the very first week of this series, we talked about the fact that retaining influence in the lives of our kids is our top priority. You want to watch influence erode really quickly? Just never be wrong. Just always be right, and just always make sure that your kids know that you're right and that you're never wrong. And watch how fast your influence drains. But an ongoing humility, a posture of humility also means this, not only am I not right all the time, but I want to seek to understand where you're coming from. I want to hear your perspective. That will gain influence in the lives of our kids. So we need this. We need to make a commitment as parents to this ongoing posture of humility. Here's the third commitment we should make. Unwavering perseverance. Unwavering perseverance. Parenting requires perseverance, doesn't it? You are going to have trials and difficulties raising kids. And sometimes all you can do is hang in there. That's it. Just decide in your mind, maybe even just sitting here right now, or you're watching online with the Vikings game on the other screen, just decide in your mind, okay, I'm not going to give up. No matter what happens, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up. I'm gonna be in it for the long haul. Just decide, just make a determination in your mind. I'm never gonna throw in the towel. By the way, you know this is true. Unwavering commitment, unwavering perseverance, that's a commitment that's needed to be successful at anything in life. Think about this. If we would have quit the first time we hit difficulty with Westbridge Church, we wouldn't exist today. We would have been 2 weeks in. To be successful in anything, you gotta get through different seasons of difficulty and different seasons of challenge. That's why the Apostle Paul, when writing to a group of churches in the region of Galatia, he's talking specifically about not giving up when it comes to sin, when it comes to our temptations, and not giving in and not giving up. But this verse applies even more broadly than that. Here's what he writes. He says this: so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Let's not give up. And sometimes you just have to determine, I'm not going to give up. You might be in a difficult season of parenting right now. You might be in a season where you just have no idea what to do next. The book hasn't been written on what you're going through. There's gonna be times when your child is willful or lazy or making poor decisions, and you're just completely baffled by their attitude and their mood swings and their sense of entitlement. But folks, what you absolutely cannot do is give up. Sometimes all you can do is just stay engaged in their life and ride out the storm. Unwavering perseverance. Here's the fourth commitment that I think all parents need: a commitment to a healthy marriage. Now, let me just give this caveat as we dive into this. If you're a single parent or you're in a blended family, please hear me. This is not meant to shame you in any way. I recognize it takes two to make a marriage work, number one. I recognize that for some of you, you're not married any longer because of things that happened that were outside of your control. Others of you go, no, listen, I wish I could go back and make different decisions. If I could go back in time, I would, but I can't, and now I'm just doing my best to move forward. And listen, God is way more concerned with your future than he is with your past. So this is not meant to shame those who are no longer married. We want this to be a place of hope and support for you as you continue to move forward. At the same time, I want to help those who are married and raising kids to understand how your marriage plays a significant role in parenting. And here's why. The health of our marriage is a big factor in the personal security of our kids. And at some point in your marriage, you're going to have to wrestle with taking time away from your kids in order to invest in your marriage. And when you do, everybody wins. When Cherry and I first got married, we were young. Okay, we were 19 years old. She had just turned 19 6 weeks before our wedding. And so we got married, and then a few months later, we moved to Chicago, and we were living there in a tiny little apartment, but we had freedom, man. I'm telling you, like 2 19-year-olds on our own, going rollerblading every night at midnight, going out playing laser tag. Like, we just did whatever we wanted, right? We weren't tied down with kids or anything, and there's this no way we could have anticipated how much our life would change after having kids. No way. Because our time is being stretched in so many different directions. It's difficult sometimes to find the time and the energy to spend time together. But here's what I can tell you. If we're not intentional about nourishing our marriage relationship, it will slowly erode and die. What are you doing to nurture romance and friendship in your marriage? Because every couple I've ever known has had to navigate the adjustment of this was our marriage before kids to this is now our marriage after kids, where suddenly your kids get a lot of time and attention. And they used to be on each other, and now all of your time and attention seems to be on them. It can be a big struggle for marriages to stay engaged on each other when your kids are taking up so much of your time, so much of your attention. But if you don't nurture friendship and romance, what you discover through the years is that you've become great parenting partners, but you're no longer friends and lovers. And that's a sobering thought. And honestly, you may be sitting here today and you haven't spoken these things to each other out loud, but you're thinking to yourself, man, I thinking about my spouse, I know they don't feel prioritized. I know I put the kids ahead of them. I know our marriage I don't know that our marriage feels more important than raising our kids right now. And if you're just kind of trying to like awkwardly avoid looking at your spouse right now, let me just give you a couple of ideas on how you can begin to nurture friendship and romance again. Because this is so critical for those who are married and raising kids. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm telling you, we fight this battle all the time. With 4 kids, ranging different seasons of life, I'm just telling you, but there are some little things that you can begin to do right now, that you can begin to do this afternoon, you can begin to do this week, that I promise you will start to prioritize that relationship. And the way that your marriage goes matters more than you will ever know when it comes to your kids. So here's a few ideas. Give compliments and affection in front of your kids. Give compliments to each other in front of, let them see how much you love each other. I want my kids, the mission is that my kids are grossed out every day. That's the mission. If at least once a day I don't hear, Dad, Mom, get a room, then I got work to do. That's just like a shower. We talked about showering kids with affection. We should shower our spouse with affection in front of our kids. It creates a lot of security for kids. How about this? Plan a consistent date night. Spend quality time together. And listen, this doesn't have to be like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, okay? Like, it's not like, oh man, we better save up for a month so we can go out on a date together. Like, you can just go for a walk, right? You can make food at home. There's so many things you can do. Just get creative. It's not about the activity. It's about spending time together. Hang out together. Here's another one. Be romantic. So guys, get her flowers. Send her a text during the day. Hey, just thinking about you, right? Write her a poem if that's your gift. Pick her up a small gift. Just let her know you're thinking about her. Send her on a spa day, whatever it is. But little things that just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. You matter to me. I love you. Just reminders that she's on your mind. Ladies, watch sports with him. That's it. That's all I got. That'll do it. I can think of one other activity that he would enjoy as well. So I'll say this, let him know how thankful you are for him. When you see little things, this is the mistake that women make, and I'm painting with a broad brush, just hang in here with me. This is a broad generalization. But here's what ladies will do. I wish he would do more around the house. So to get him to do more around the house, say, hey, I wish you'd do more around the house. That is this much motivating for a man. Because men are wired to be drawn to environments where we feel gratitude, where we feel respected. So instead, just pick whatever the tiniest thing is that he's already doing. And just go, man, thank you so much for doing that. I really, really appreciate that. And he'll be like, oh, I like that. What else can I do around here? I'm just telling you, I'm trying to let you into the inner workings of our simple minds, all right? Let him know you're thankful for him. Say thank you for what he does. Watch him come to life. Here's another one. Talk a lot and work on communication with each other. This takes effort. You gotta spend time talking to each other about the important details of your life. When I was a kid, we would every year go on a trip to Muncie, Indiana. This is where I was born. I grew up in Minnesota, but I was born in Muncie, Indiana. And so every year, my mom's side of the family, we would take a trip in our station wagon, and we would drive to Muncie, Indiana. Mom, dad, 4 kids. And we would be in the car, and we lived in Buffalo, Minnesota, and inevitably, somewhere along the way, somebody would go, are we there yet? You know, we'd leave Buffalo, we'd be driving through St. Michael, and someone would be like, are we almost there? And we would fight, right, as siblings do in the car on a long trip. You get sick of each other, and then mom would always make the same empty threat. Does dad need to pull the car over? Dad's not pulling the car over, right? So stop making that threat, parents. Okay, we get so bored, and we'd play the license plate game, and we'd play the alphabet game, and we'd play pack your grandma's suitcase, and then, our parents just like, all right, my mom would always have this amazing idea, and every parent knows this strategy. Let's play the quiet game. Oh, yeah, that's fun. Let's do that. And so then there would be like 10 minutes of silence, and then somebody would break it, and then that's it. Quiet game over, right? And so finally, we were on this road trip one day, and I had this liberating thought. I was like, wait a minute. This isn't a game at all. She is manipulating us so that they can have some peace for their own benefit. And finally, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I am 17 years old. I'm done with this game. And at 45 years old, I find myself playing the quiet game more often than I should. I withdraw into my own internal dialogue. I'm physically present, but I'm mentally absent. It's like, I know that my wife is different than most women because she likes to talk to me about stuff. I don't fully get it, but I gotta engage. I can't just be withdrawn. I have to make the commitment to maintain communication. And so here's what I can tell you. When it comes to communication, it's not massive things, right? It's the little communication. It's throughout the day. Hey, how you doing? How's your day going? I'm thinking about you. Hey, when you get home at night and you come back together, it's going, hey, how was your day? Give me the boring details about your meeting at work. It's those little interactions that build a relationship over time. It's talking about your life and sharing your life together. It's not some big romantic gesture as much as it's the thousands of little interactions that you have on a regular basis. Don't wake up one day after 20 years of marriage and realize, man, we don't even know each other. Here's another one. Just put each other first. Just do whatever you can to put your spouse ahead of yourself. I mean, that one principle alone, if you hear nothing else today, I hope you'll hear this. Put your spouse ahead of yourself. I mean, for some of us, if we just did that, it would change our marriage tomorrow. Put your spouse ahead of yourself. In writing to the church in Ephesus, the Apostle Paul says this, husbands and wives, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now, often what we hear is the next verse, verse 22, which is like, hey, wives, submit to your husbands. And churches love that verse, but they often miss the verse right before it that says, no, this is a mutual submission. And then verse 22 and verse 23 say, wives to husbands, husbands to wives. It's mutual. And submission doesn't talk about blind obedience. Submission means this deference. It's a way of saying, I'm going to put you first. And the Apostle Paul says, look, just as Christ put the church first, ahead of his own needs and preferences, when we do that for each other, when two spouses are committed to doing that for each other, and the husband commits to put his wife first, and the wife commits to put her husband first, and it's a submission competition, then the dynamic that creates in marriage is incredible. I mean, wouldn't you want to have that type of relationship with someone where you're just constantly putting each other ahead of one another? In fact, in Hebrews, the author of Hebrews writes this, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. Give honor to marriage. How are you doing that? Are you praying for each other? Are you serving each other? Do you give time to each other? Are you encouraging each other and supporting one another? One of the best gifts that you can give your children is a healthy marriage. So if it comes down to making a decision between time with your kids and time with your spouse, choose time with your spouse. Because if you sacrifice your marriage for the sake of your kids, then you end up losing in the end. And so we need to make a commitment. For those of us who are married and raising kids, do everything we can to make a commitment to a healthy marriage. Now, here's the fifth commitment that I think, personally, I think every parent should make. If you're a follower of Jesus, you need to make this commitment. Spiritual growth. You should have a commitment that you're going to continue to grow in your faith, that you're going to continue to walk with Jesus, that you're going to continue to grow in that area. Ask yourself this question: is my heart for God growing or shrinking? And the reason that question is so important is, and we talked about this last week, however you view God, it bleeds its way into every aspect of your life. For those of us as adults, how we manage our time, how we manage our resources, how we treat people, how we view marriage, how we approach our sexuality, how we approach working on the job. Everything in life is affected by our view of God. So that should be our starting point. On top of that, our relationship with God is critical for another reason. Mom and dad, you are the primary spiritual influence in the life of your kids, not the church. I wish it were. I wish it were the church. It would make life a lot easier, right? But in any given year, the church, at best, gets about 52 hours out of the year. If you came every single week for an hour a week. If your kid comes on Wednesday nights for 2 hours, every single Wednesday night, 52 weeks out of the year, that's 104 hours that the church has them. Okay, that's great, but you as a parent, even if you take out the time that they're at school and the time that they spend sleeping, you have about 2,500 hours a year with your kids. Make no mistake, you are the biggest spiritual influence in the life of your kids. They do what they see, not necessarily what we tell them. So if you want your kids to have a healthy relationship with God, you want them to understand what he thinks about them and how he sees them and how he sees their role in life, then they've got to first see that in you. You can tell them how important God is in your life, but if they don't see it in their calendar, if they don't see it in your checkbook, if they don't see it in your behavior, if they don't see it in your priorities, then they're not going to see it. Think about this. Our kids will decide what God is like. They're going to decide how God relates to them based largely, especially when they're younger, on their relationship with us. And see, the love and grace they experience from their earthly parents will impact how they view their heavenly Father. Do you want your kids to know and love God? Do you want them to pursue spiritual growth in their life? The answer isn't more community programs. It's not more church programs. It's not free school lunches. It's not more birth control. We need more parents who raise kids who know and love God, who raise kids to know and love God, who raise kids to know and love God. That's what we need. That's what makes the difference. You're never too old to start growing spiritually. In fact, again, Paul is this same letter to the church in Ephesus. He's writing about spiritual growth, and he says this: since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from him, once you hear the message and you put your faith in it, you start to believe it, he says, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Paul says there is a way of living, the way that you were living before you came to Jesus, and it wasn't working for you, was it? It was filled with lust and deception. It was deceiving you. It was tricking you into thinking that it was working, but you'd lay your head down on the pillow each night and you'd realize, man, it's just not working. And he goes, so once you hear about Jesus, take that off. And then he gives the contrast. He says, instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes and put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. This is the way we phrase this around here all the time. Like, man, come as you are. You don't have to change anything. In fact, this is a place you can belong even if you don't believe. Even if you're working out what you believe, you're trying to figure out what you believe. Great, you're in the right spot. Keep coming, because God accepts you as is. All of your flaws, all of your mess, all of your baggage, all of your mistakes, all of your sin, you bring all of it to Jesus. And he accepts you as is. But here's what I want you to know, and here's what the Apostle Paul is saying. He loves you too much to leave you as is. He wants to give you hope that there can be something better in the future. So he says, now that you've heard of Jesus, take off the old way of life and put on your new nature. And when you do that, that's a way that you grow spiritually. You make commitments to go, you know what? In this area of my life, it was filled with lust and deception, and it's not working. So I'm going to take that off and try something new. This is what God wants for us. When the Spirit of God comes into your life, we realize there's a better way to live. And as you continue to grow in your walk with God, His Spirit will begin to show you areas of your life where you can take off the old and put on the new. And you can improve and do things differently. And when you become aware of God's ways, you make a decision to step into God's ways. And for some of you, you're so new to this idea of a relationship with God, but even as I'm talking, something is stirring in your heart that you can't even explain. And I want you to know that God is drawing you to Himself. He wants you to be a part of His family, and we want to create environments that help you do that, to begin to move in God's direction, because I promise you, God is moving in yours. Here's some simple ways that you can commit to growing spiritually. Simple things, again, just practices that you can step into that will help you continue to grow in your faith. Number one, attend church as a family. Like, you're the preacher, of course you're gonna say that. That's the preacher answer. But I'm telling you, there are very few things that will help you than a consistent showing up. There's a reason professional athletes still have practice. Right? You show up and you continue to just show up. You go to church together as a family, and what it does, it creates a rhythm where you're consistently pointing your life back to God and away from yourself. How about this? Attend a life group. Explain to your kids why that's so important, why community is so important in your life, that this is not something that you do on your own. How about this? Begin to be generous with your finances and explain. Man, this is the reason we do this, because God has entrusted things to us, and we can be a blessing to others. How about say a simple prayer with them when you tuck them in at night? And I'm not saying something elaborate, right? You don't have to start it off, oh, sweet heavenly Lord of hosts. How about this? Like, hey, God, give us peace while we sleep. Amen. Hey, God, help us tomorrow to love others as you've loved us. Amen. Something simple. Don't be afraid to admit when you're wrong. Just these simple habits, these simple practices will help you grow in your faith. And here's what I want us to remember. It has to be in you before it can be in them. It must be in you before it will be in them. Our parenting has to be grounded in something. We must have a foundation. And I would respectfully submit that Jesus is the most firm foundation on which to build your life, on which to build your marriage, and on which to build your parenting. For many of us, that foundation has become cracked and broken. But if we could begin to put some of these commitments in place in our lives, it would give us the foundation we need to parent from a position of health and not from a position of anxiety or frustration or guilt. And something is always better than nothing, and it is never too late to start. So, I want to tell you this. It's also never too late to start a relationship with Jesus. God sent Jesus into this world to reveal who God is. And what Jesus shows us about God is that He is the God who would rather lay down His life on our behalf. And so Jesus comes into the world. He says God is love. And to show that love, He takes our sin. He allows Himself to be put to death. His body is laid in a tomb. And according to multiple eyewitnesses, hundreds of people saw Jesus alive again. Which means death is not the end. There is more to this life than this life. And you and I have been invited to be a part of God's family. And if you would like to say yes to that invitation, this isn't something that you can earn through good behavior. This is just an invitation God is extending to you because He created you and He loves you. So if you want to say yes to that, would you just agree with this prayer? God, please forgive my sins. Forgive me for those times that I've walked away from you. I'm so thankful that you've never walked away from me. God, I want to say yes to your invitation. Make me your son. Make me your daughter. Help me to put my trust in you and to follow you as best as I know how from this moment on. And God, I pray for every one of us. I pray that you would help us to make some commitments. God, less guilt, ongoing humility, unwavering perseverance. God, a commitment to spiritual growth, that we would continue to just find the next right step in our spiritual journey and then give us the courage to take it. And as we do, may our lives collectively point people to you. We love you, and we pray this in your name. Amen.